King Arion Valtaris stood at the end of the moonlit hall, his black cloak trailing behind him like a storm cloud. The crown felt heavier than usual tonight. A wedding should have felt celebratory. This one felt like the tightening of a noose. Around him, nobles murmured behind jeweled fans and gloved hands. Have you heard? The Omega Prince is hideous. They say he has scales, some curse. The king is sacrificing himself for peace. Arion ignored them. Years on the battlefield had given him thicker armor than steel. An ugly prince, a political pawn, a fragile burden. That was what the emissaries of Sylvarn had promised him. He expected nothing else. At the grand entrance, the cathedral doors opened. 2 guards escorted a delicate figure wrapped in layer upon layer of silver veil, not even his silhouette visible. The Omega Prince's ornate robes brushed the red carpet like drifting moonlight. The hall fell silent. The figure moved slowly, gracefully. Too gracefully for someone supposedly weak. Arion's eyebrow twitched. So the rumors were exaggerations, as rumors often are, he thought. Still, a veil this heavy? Are they hiding him or hiding me from him? The veiled Omega stopped before Arion, head bowed. A priest stepped forward, voice echoing. By decree of both kingdoms we unite His Majesty, Alpha King Arion Valtaris, and His Highness Prince Lyris Kale of Sylvarn. At the name, Lyris, the veiled figure flinched almost imperceptibly. Arion noticed. He noticed everything. Raise your head, Arion said quietly. The Omega didn't. Instead, a soft voice, gentle but sharp-edged like hidden glass, responded, Forgive me, Your Majesty. Tradition forbids me from unveiling or lifting my gaze until the ceremony is complete. Arion paused. So he speaks, and not weakly either. Very well, he replied. They exchanged ritual vows, brief and impersonal. The priest tied their hands with a silver ribbon symbolizing the moon goddess's blessing. From this moment, the priest declared, Your fates are bound. The hall applauded. Arion did not. Lyris did not. This was a union of politics, not hearts. When they finally left the cathedral, Arion walked slightly ahead, expecting Lyris to follow. He did. Quiet, graceful, but distant. Too distant for a newly bonded Omega. Arion opened the door to the private carriage and gestured for Lyris to enter. After you, he said. Lyris hesitated, turning his veiled head slightly. You are kinder than I was told. Arion blinked, caught off guard. And what were you told? That the Alpha King of Nocturne devours the weak and crushes anything that displeases him. Arion exhaled through his nose. A flattering reputation. It was not meant to be flattering. The carriage rode into the night, torches flickering outside. The silence between them twisted and coiled like an unseen serpent. Finally, Arion spoke. I'll make something clear. His voice was calm but firm. I will not demand anything of you tonight. You are my consort, not my prisoner. Rest as you see fit. The veiled head turned sharply, surprised. You do not wish to see the face of the Omega you've married. Arion looked out the window, jaw set. I do not care what you look like, Lyris. Beauty won't win me battles, and ugliness won't break my kingdom. There was the faintest sound, a soft exhale, maybe a hidden laugh, or maybe a note of disbelief. I see. Neither spoke again until the carriage arrived at the palace. Later that night, Lyris stood inside the dimly lit royal chambers. The veil still draped over him like fog. Arion kept his distance at the doorway. You may sleep wherever you're comfortable. I won't touch you without consent. A long silence stretched between them. Then Lyris whispered, voice almost too soft to hear. No one has ever given me that choice before. Arion froze, but before he could respond, Lyris bowed and moved toward the adjoining chamber, disappearing behind the heavy door. The veil swayed behind him like a ghost. Arion remained alone, staring at the closed door long after Lyris had gone. What kind of life has he lived, Arion wondered, that simple respect feels unfamiliar to him. Outside, the moon hung high, a silent witness to a marriage between a feared Alpha King and a prince who had never been allowed to show his face. Morning light spilled into the king's private courtyard, dancing across the stones like liquid gold. The palace servants moved quietly, careful not to disturb the king so soon after his politically strained wedding. But Arion was already awake. He had slept little, not because of nerves. He had faced armies, not butterflies, but because of a veiled prince whose soft words lingered in his mind like smoke. No one has ever given me that choice before. Arion rubbed the bridge of his nose as he entered the dining hall. He expected to eat alone, as royal tradition dictated for the first morning after a political marriage. He did not expect to find Lyris already seated at the far end of the long table. Still veiled, graceful hands lifted a teacup, sleeves cascading like water. Not a movement wasted, not a breath unmeasured. "Good morning, Your Majesty," Lyris said. Arion studied him. "You rise early." "I rise when needed," Lyris answered, tone neutral. "And I wish to avoid the stares of your court during first breakfast. You'll have to face them sooner or later." "Later," Lyris said without hesitation, a surprising spark of defiance. Arion sat opposite him. "Are you afraid of them?" Lyris's head tilted just slightly. "Should I be? You tell me." A beat of silence. Then, Lyris's voice sharpened, not loud but edged with cold truth. "I am an Omega consort from an enemy kingdom hidden behind a veil rumored to be cursed and sent here as a political sacrifice. Your nobles will dislike me before I utter a word. My beauty, my ugliness, whichever they imagine, will only fuel their whispers. I prefer tea to insults this morning." Arion blinked. Lyris spoke with logic sharper than steel. "You are more pragmatic than I expected." "I was raised to be a bargaining piece," Lyris said softly. "Pragmatism is survival." Arion, for the first time, truly wondered what life Lyris had lived before coming here. A servant approached nervously. "Your Majesties, would you like more tea?" Lyris froze slightly, almost imperceptible, but Arion caught it. Servants in Silverne were forbidden from speaking directly to Omega royalty. Arion spoke gently. "Lyris likes his tea warm. Refill his cup." The servant bowed and poured. Lyris's hands tightened around the porcelain. Arion asked quietly, "Does being served bother you?" "No, just unexpected." A pause. "Thank you." He thanks a servant, Arion thought. How strange, and how telling. Later, the royal council convened. Arion entered with heavy steps. He did not expect Lyris to follow him. The hall murmured in shock as the veiled Omega took a place at Arion's side, not behind him. "Your Highness," Chancellor Varen said stiffly, "Omegas traditionally do not attend council meetings." Lyris's voice was calm silk. "Is there a law forbidding it?" "No, but then I will listen quietly." The nobles bristled. Arion hid a smirk. So he's not passive after all. The meeting began. Border threats, resource negotiations, troop deployments. Lyris remained silent until a general proposed sending soldiers to pressure Silverne into offering additional concessions. Lyris spoke up. "That would be unwise." All eyes snapped toward him. "And why?" the general challenged. "Should we take advice from someone who cannot even show his face?" A sharp tension filled the air. Arion's jaw clenched, but Lyris spoke first. "Because I was raised among the very diplomats you are trying to intimidate," Lyris replied coolly. "Threaten Silverne now, and they will suspect you kidnapped me to weaken their throne. They will send troops, not to fight you, but to liberate me. You risk war for nothing." Stunned silence. Even Arion stared. "This Omega is dangerous in all the ways that matter." The general scowled. "Is that a threat, Prince?" Lyris's tone remained serene. "Truth is not a threat, it is simply inconvenient." Arion nearly choked. He had not expected to like this side of Lyris quite so much. When the council ended, nobles whispered like insects behind curtains. As they exited the hall, Arion stopped Lyris in the corridor. "You were bold in there. Was I wrong?" Lyris asked. "No." Arion stepped closer. "But you risked angering them." "I am familiar with anger," Lyris replied. "It rarely kills." "There are worse things than anger," Arion murmured. Lyris hesitated. Something unreadable flickered beneath the veil. "Yes," he whispered. "There are." A long silence followed. Finally, Arion cleared his throat. "You should rest. The council will be louder tomorrow." Lyris's voice softened just a little. Barely a breath. "Thank you, Arion. Not Your Majesty, not King, just Arion." It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Arion watched him walk away, silver veil trailing like moonlight. "Who are you really, Lyris Kale? And why do I feel like I am the one being unveiled?" The palace gardens were quiet that afternoon, a rare piece in a kingdom always bracing for war. Roses climbed marble arches, petals fluttering like soft crimson snow in the breeze. Lyris walked alone, a small escort following from a respectful distance. His steps were graceful, but his mind was troubled. I spoke too boldly in the council. The nobles will retaliate, and Arion. Lyris paused. Arion's voice still echoed in his thoughts. You were bold. But there had been something else in the Alpha King's eyes. Something not quite disapproval. Something warm, curious, almost proud. Lyris shook his head. It doesn't matter. I am here as a symbol, not a partner. He reached for a rose, touching its petal gently. Your Highness, a guard's shout cut through the garden. Before Lyris could turn, a sharp whistle sliced the air. An arrow. He felt it before he saw it, the whisper of wind, the sting of danger. His heart lurched, instincts flaring. The arrow streaked toward him, unmistakably aimed to kill. Lyris didn't scream. He simply stepped back, letting the arrow tear through the edge of his veil instead of his throat. The fabric ripped with a violent hiss. His escort panicked. Protect the prince, find the shooter. As guards scattered, Lyris pressed a hand to his veil. A tear now exposed a sliver of his cheek, a pale moonlit glimpse of the beauty he'd spent a lifetime hiding. He froze. If the veil falls, if they see. Footsteps thundered behind him. Lyris. Arion's voice, not commanding, frightened. Arion reached him in seconds, large hands gripping Lyris's shoulders, scanning him for wounds. Are you hurt? Talk to me. I'm fine, Lyris whispered, shaken. Arion's eyes dropped to the torn side of the veil. A breath caught in his throat, a sliver of flawless skin, the curve of a high cheekbone, a hint of soft rose under pale silk. The king's voice faltered. You? Lyris's hands flew up, covering the tear. Instinct. Terror. Don't look. Arion stepped back immediately. As you wish. For a moment neither spoke. Wind rustled the garden leaves. Somewhere in the distance, guards shouted as they hunted the would-be assassin. Arion's jaw tightened. This was no random attack, he growled. Someone wanted you dead. Lyris lowered his hands slightly. Or someone wanted me unveiled. Arion stiffened. Does that matter so much to you? Yes, Lyris breathed. It matters more than you know. Arion studied him for a long moment, then shrugged off his own cloak, thick, black, heavy with fur and embroidered gold, and stepped behind Lyris. May I? He asked. Lyris blinked. May you, what? Arion gently draped the cloak over Lyris's head and shoulders, shielding the torn veil from all eyes. You shouldn't fear being seen, Arion murmured, close enough that Lyris could feel the warmth of his breath through the fabric. But if you do, then I'll protect your privacy. Lyris's heart thumped painfully. Why? Because you're my consort, Arion said simply. And because I gave my word. Lyris swallowed. Omegas are not usually given choices. Or respect. Then I'll be the exception, Arion replied. For the first time since the wedding, Lyris felt his pulse stumble for a reason other than fear. Arion stepped away just as guards returned. We caught the assassin, your majesties. They dragged a masked man forward. He spat defiance. I do not fear you, Alpha King. That Omega is a curse on our land, a monster hidden behind silk. Before the guard could elbow him silent, Lyris spoke. Not softly, not gently. Cold. Remove him, Lyris said. The assassin recoiled, surprised by the authority in that voice. And if he survives interrogation, Lyris continued, send him back to whoever ordered this attack. Arion raised a brow. So they know they failed, so they know I am not afraid. Lyris replied. The assassin paled. Even Arion blinked. He's not fragile at all, the king realized. He's formidable. When the guards hauled the assassin away, Arion turned back to Lyris. We need to get you inside before anyone else sees the tear. Lyris nodded, but as they walked back to the palace, wrapped in Arion's cloak, one thought burned in Lyris's mind. Why does his protection feel comforting, dangerously comforting, and in Arion's mind? Why do I suddenly want to know the face beneath that veil, for reasons that have nothing to do with politics? The palace was a storm. Whispers whipped through the halls like cold wind. An assassin in the royal gardens. Was the Omega the true target? Or was someone trying to provoke war? Servants scurried, guards doubled their patrols, and nobles sharpened their tongues like daggers. At the center of it all, Lyris sat quietly on a cushioned bench near the palace's inner chambers, wrapped in Arion's cloak like a shadow within a shadow. He waited, not fearfully, patiently. Whoever sent the assassin, they will not stop here. The door beside him opened, Arian emerged, his hair disheveled, armor faintly splattered with dust. Proof he'd been in the dungeons. His eyes found Lyris immediately. "You waited for me?" he asked. Lyris tilted his head. "Should I have returned alone? This palace is not exactly safe today." A small, dry smile tugged at Arian's lips. "Fair point. Come with me," the king said. "Somewhere secure." Lyris rose, graceful despite the heavy cloak, and followed. Maps and scrolls covered the long oak table. Candlelight flickered against stained glass windows depicting ancient wars. Arian motioned for Lyris to sit. Then he circled the table to face him directly. "We caught the assassin's handler," Arian said. "They weren't from Silverne." Lyris's fingers tightened around the cloak. "Then who?" "An extremist faction within Nocturne," Arian replied. "They believe Omegas weaken royal bloodlines. They wanted you dead." Lyris's voice dropped. "And you?" Arian frowned. "What about me?" Lyris looked up, veil rustling softly. "If they wished to strike at your rule, killing your consort would be one way to do it." Arian paused. The realization hit both of them at the same time. Lyris isn't the liability. His death would be... Arian exhaled. "It seems certain people want to test me," Lyris whispered, "or break you." Silence. Then Lyris stood, walking toward the giant map pinned to the wall. He traced a finger along a border region. "A quiet mountain pass," he murmured. "One your enemies use frequently." Arian blinked. "You recognize our territories." "I was trained in diplomacy and strategy since childhood," Lyris replied. "My brother was expected to rule. I was expected to advise him." Arian stepped closer, so close that his presence warmed the air around them. "You know warfare," he said softly. "Better than most generals," Lyris answered. A breath caught in Arian's chest. How many things about him have been hidden? How many truths masked beneath that veil? Lyris reached for a parchment on the high shelf. The cloak slipped slightly as he stretched. Arian reacted on instinct, stepping forward and catching the heavy fabric before it fell completely. His hand brushed Lyris's shoulder. Warm, firm. Lyris stiffened. Arian froze behind him. The cloak hung halfway from Lyris's form, revealing the elegant line of his neck, the soft curve where it met his shoulder. Not scandalous. Just intimate. Too intimate. "Your cloak," Arian murmured, voice lower than he intended. "Thank you," Lyris breathed, equally unsteady. Arian draped the garment back around him carefully, almost reverently. Their fingers grazed. A spark leaped between them, hot, undeniable. Lyris pulled away first, heart hammering. "This is unnecessary," he whispered, trying to compose himself. "You needn't fuss over me." "It's not fussing," Arian said quietly. "It's ensuring your comfort." Lyris's voice was barely audible. "I'm not used to... comfort." Arian's chest tightened painfully. Before he could respond, footsteps echoed outside the chamber. A guard burst in. "Your Majesty, Prince Lyris. There's been another incident. Someone attempted to break into the Omega wing." Arian's expression hardened into steel. Lyris went cold. "So soon?" he murmured. Arian turned to him, voice fierce. "You stay with me now. Always." Lyris's throat tightened. "Is that an order?" he asked softly. Arian stepped closer. "No," he said, eyes burning with something Lyris couldn't name. "A promise." Night settled over Valtaris' palace like thick velvet, heavy with unease. Torches flickered along the stone corridors, throwing restless shadows across the floors. The palace felt different now, watchful, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Arian strode down the hall with Lyris at his side, guards trailing behind them in doubled ranks. But Arian didn't trust any of them, not after 2 attacks in one day. He stopped in front of the Omega wing, its doors warped and splintered where someone had tried to force entry. Arian's voice was a low growl. "Find out who was stationed here, and bring them to me." The guards saluted and scattered. Lyris stood silently, wrapped in Arian's cloak. He touched the cracked doorframe with a trembling hand. "They were close," Lyris whispered. "Too close." Arian stepped toward him. "Not again. I won't let them." A moment of silence passed between them, heavy, fragile. "Then, we're not staying here," Arian said firmly. "You'll sleep in the protected wing." "Near my chambers," Lyris's breath hitched. That is unprecedented. I know. People will talk. I know. Your court will accuse you of favoritism. I know. Arian looked at him then. Really looked. And I don't care. Your safety matters more. Lyris lowered his head, veil brushing his chest. Thank you. But Arian wasn't ready for what came next. Footsteps echoed. A guard approached. One of the senior captains, pale with fear. Your Majesty. It's Captain Ral. He was the one assigned to this corridor. Arian tensed. Ral was loyal. Or supposed to be. Bring him, Arian commanded. 2 soldiers dragged Ral forward. His wrists were bound, but his eyes burned with fanatic fire. You! Ral snarled at Lyris. You're the curse they warned us about. Your beauty hides corruption. You'll poison our king. Arian slammed him against the wall before the guards could react. Watch your words, the king hissed. Ral laughed, spitting blood. He's hiding his face because it's unnatural. A demon's glamour. Once the veil falls, you'll see. Suddenly, the torch flames flickered violently. A gust of wind tore through the hall. The cloak around Lyris whipped to the side, catching on a jagged splinter of the broken door. And the veil ripped, just a little, just enough. A breath of moonlit skin. A slanted line of his jaw. The curve of a petal-soft lip. A shimmer like starlight beneath sheer silk. Everyone froze. Arian's heart slammed against his ribs. He had expected rumors, exaggerations, but nothing prepared him for the truth. Even that single exposed glimpse was beautiful enough to silence the world. Ral choked. A trick of the goddess, he whispered, horrified. He truly is. Arian didn't let him finish. Enough, the king roared. His voice shook the corridor. Lyris grabbed the veil with shaking hands, pulling it closed again. He didn't look at Arian. Couldn't. His voice quivered, barely audible. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't apologize, Arian said too quickly, too softly. Lyris froze. Arian stepped closer, careful and slow. His voice dropped to a low murmur meant for Lyris alone. You're not at fault, and you're not a curse. Lyris swallowed. You should not have seen. Why? Arian asked. Lyris hesitated, every breath trembling against the veil. Because once people see the face they fear or desire, they stop seeing the person. Arian's chest ached. Is that why they hid him away? Because he was too beautiful, or too powerful? Before Arian could ask more, a guard cried, Your Majesty! Another breach, near the eastern tower. Arian cursed under his breath. He turned to Lyris, placing a steadying hand on his arm. You're coming with me. You won't be left alone again. Lyris looked up, startled behind the veil. You trust me to stay beside you during danger? Arian met his gaze. Through silk, through uncertainty. I trust you more than I trust the majority of my court. Lyris's breath stilled. Then, with surprising boldness for someone usually so controlled, he whispered, Then I will stay. They moved together, king and veiled consort, into the heart of the unfolding chaos. Unseen by both, a figure hid in the shadows of a nearby archway, whispering to a crystal communications stone. The Omega remains alive, and the king is becoming attached. Proceed to phase 2. Torches streaked past them as Arian led Lyris through the dim halls, their footsteps echoing in unison. The alarms had quieted, but the tension had not. The palace felt like a beast holding its breath. Lyris clutched Arian's cloak around himself, the torn veil trembling with each step. He wasn't afraid of the attackers. He was afraid of what Arian had seen. A glimpse of his face. Too much. Too dangerous. Yet Arian had not recoiled. He hadn't even looked away. That terrified Lyris more than any assassin. Arian opened the door to a secluded chamber, one used for war councils and strategy, but now emptied for privacy and safety. Stay here, Arian said gently. I won't have you exposed to another attack tonight. Lyris's eyes widened behind the veil. You're staying with me? Arian hesitated. For a moment, he murmured. To make sure you're calm. Lyris's breath hitched. Calm. How could I possibly be calm near him? Arian stepped closer, step by slow step. Lyris instinctively backed up until his lower back touched the edge of a table, a soft gasp escaping him. Arian froze instantly. I won't touch you, he said softly. Not without your permission. His voice, deep, steady, warm, wrapped around Lyris like a blanket. Lyris swallowed hard. I know. Arion exhaled, relieved, but Lyris's fingers trembled as they tightened around the veil. Arion noticed. "Does the tear bother you that much?" he asked. "Yes," Lyris's voice cracked. "You weren't supposed to see me." Arion approached slowly, carefully, like one would approach a frightened deer. He lifted a hand, then paused inches from Lyris's cheek. "May I?" Barely above a whisper. Lyris's heart thumped violently. "Only the veil," Lyris managed. "Just fix the veil." Arion nodded. His fingers brushed the edge of the torn silk, light, gentle, reverent. Lyris's breath stuttered. Arion's hand didn't even touch his skin, yet every nerve in Lyris's body seemed aware of him. "We'll have this replaced," Arion murmured. "With something stronger, that won't stop people from wanting to tear it off," Lyris whispered. Arion paused, then lowered his voice. "Then it's my job to protect you." Lyris's lips parted in surprise. The king of Nocturne, feared by nations, making a vow in a dim, quiet room to protect an Omega he barely knew. It felt too intimate, too warm, too dangerous. "You're trembling," Arion murmured. Lyris looked away. "I'm not. You are." Arion's voice softened even further. "Because of the attack? Because of me?" Lyris's breath hitched. He tried to speak calmly, but the truth slipped out in a whisper. "Because I don't know how to be near you yet." Arion's chest tightened painfully. "Near me," he repeated, voice low. "Am I frightening?" "No," Lyris said quickly. "Not frightening, just—" He searched for words. He failed. Arion took a slow breath and closed the distance between them, not touching but close enough that Lyris could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Lyris," Arion murmured, "tell me what troubles you." Lyris's hands twisted together beneath the cloak. "I'm troubled by how you look at me," he whispered. Arion went still. Lyris continued, voice trembling like the silk over his face. "You look at me as though I'm someone precious, someone you want to understand, someone you want to—" He swallowed. "Keep close." Arion's expression softened into something Lyris had never seen on him before. "Because I do want to understand you," the king said quietly. "And I do want to keep you close." Lyris's knees nearly gave out. The air between them thickened, warm, electric, intimate. Arion reached up again, slower this time, and let his hand hover beside Lyris's cheek without touching. "You hide your face," he whispered. "But I see you." Lyris's breath caught. "You know nothing about me," he whispered. Arion stepped even closer, close enough that Lyris could feel the Alpha's breath stirring the veil. "Then tell me," Arion whispered. "Let me in." Lyris shook his head, voice cracking. "If you knew me, what I can do, what I am, you might wish you had never married me." Arion's voice dropped to a warm, steady rumble. "I'm not afraid of you." A shaky breath escaped Lyris. "You should be," he whispered. Arion held his gaze through the veil. "I'm not." Silence pulsed between them, heavy, charged, fragile. Then, a distant explosion rocked the palace. The floor trembled. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Arion moved instantly, covering Lyris with his body without hesitation. Lyris gasped, heart hammering as he felt the heat and strength of the king's arms around him. Arion's voice was fierce against his ear. "You are mine to protect." Lyris's voice shook. "And you are mine to warn." Arion pulled back just enough to meet Lyris's eyes through the veil. "Warn me about what?" he asked. Lyris placed a trembling hand over his own chest. "About the thing inside me," he whispered. "The reason they fear me." His voice dropped to a fragile tremor. "And the reason they want me dead," before Arion could ask. The door to the chamber slammed open. A blood-soaked guard gasped. "Your Majesty, the attackers are inside the palace walls." Arion stepped in front of Lyris instantly, voice a deep growl. "They will not touch him." But Lyris whispered behind him, "Arion, you should worry less about losing me, and more about what happens if they don't." The truth hung between them, a truth wrapped in silk, secrets, and a power that was far from fragile. The walls trembled again. Arion did not. He stood like a fortress in front of Lyris, shoulders broad, presence overwhelming, every instinct screaming protect, protect, protect. Guards rushed past the doorway. Shouts echoed. Swords clashed. But in the center of the chaos, the Alpha King kept his eyes only on Lyris. "Stay behind me," Arion commanded, voice vibrating with authority. Lyris's fingers tightened in the cloak he wore, knuckles whitening, not from fear of the attackers. but fear of what protecting him might cost Arion. Arion, Lyris whispered, stepping closer until the hem of Arion's royal coat brushed against his own robes. You don't understand. No, Arion said firmly, turning to face him. I understand enough. His hand lifted, hesitating only for a heartbeat before gently cupping the side of Lyris's veiled face. He didn't touch his skin, just the silk, but Lyris still felt the warmth travel straight through him. I won't leave you, Arion murmured. Not tonight. Not ever. Whatever danger hunts you, hunts us both now. Lyris's breath caught. His voice trembled. You shouldn't bind yourself to me so easily. Arion's thumb moved in a slow circle over the veil, tender, sure. I should, he said. I already did. A shadow crossed the doorway. A masked attacker lunged toward them. Arion jerked forward, too far to shield Lyris without exposing himself, too far to strike before the blade reached the Omega. Lyris didn't think. He felt a pulse, a throb, a hot, burning pressure in his chest. The air around him shimmered like a heat wave. Then, boom. A blast of invisible force erupted outward. The attacker flew back and slammed into the wall with a sickening thud, sliding to the floor unconscious. The torches flickered violently. Silence followed, heavy, unbelieving. Arion turned toward Lyris slowly. Lyris, his voice was barely a breath. That wasn't Omega pheromones. That wasn't even alpha power. Lyris took a step back, trembling. That's why I said you shouldn't be near me. But Arion reached out and gently caught his hand. Careful, slow, giving Lyris every chance to pull away. Lyris didn't. Arion lifted their joined hands, brushing his thumb over the back of Lyris's fingers. Your gift, your power, doesn't frighten me. It should, Lyris whispered. It doesn't. Arion's voice dropped to a low, intimate murmur. You don't frighten me. Lyris's heart pounded painfully. How can you say that, he breathed, when you barely know who I am? Arion's eyes softened with something that made Lyris's knees weaken. Because, the king whispered, I already know how you feel. The world outside the chamber roared with chaos, clashing steel, collapsing stone, shouts of war. But inside, the space between them felt painfully small. Arion stepped closer. Lyris didn't retreat. He couldn't. His back brushed the edge of the strategy table again, trapping him gently between wood and alpha. Arion lifted a hand and slowly, carefully placed it over Lyris's racing heart. Lyris gasped softly at the warmth. I feel this, Arion whispered. Your fear, your strength, your loneliness. His thumb traced a soothing line across Lyris's chest. Nothing indecent, nothing bold, but the intimacy was enough to steal the Omega's breath. I want to know you, Arion murmured. All of you. Even the parts you think you must hide. Lyris's throat tightened. Arion. Look at me, the king said softly. Lyris lifted his gaze. Even through the veil, their eyes met. Dark alpha flame against shimmering Omega moonlight. Arion leaned in, closer, closer. His forehead lowered until it rested against Lyris's, silk the only barrier between them. Lyris inhaled sharply. Arion, he whispered again, voice trembling. The king's breath warmed the veil, warm against Lyris's lips. You don't have to tell me everything tonight, Arion murmured. But let me stay. Lyris's heart throbbed. His voice came out barely audible. Stay. Arion exhaled shakily, relief washing over him. Their foreheads stayed pressed together, a touch more intimate than any kiss, while the world outside tried to tear itself apart. For that one fragile moment, there was only the two of them, only heat, only closeness, only the quiet growing ache of two souls finding each other in the dark. The walls groaned again as another explosion shook the palace. Dust drifted from the ceiling like falling snow. Arion lifted his head from where it rested against Lyris's, sharp instincts returning, but his hand never left Lyris's heart. We need to move, he murmured. Lyris nodded, breath still unsteady. Yes, but I can walk. Arion didn't even let him finish. In one smooth motion, strong arms slid beneath Lyris's knees and back. Lyris let out a startled sound as he was lifted effortlessly off the floor. Arion? Don't argue, the king said quietly. Lyris clutched his cloak, cheeks burning beneath the veil. I'm not fragile, he murmured. Arion adjusted his hold, one arm supporting Lyris's legs, the other wrapped securely around his back. I know you're not, Arion said. His voice was warm, almost smiling, but let me hold you anyway. Lyris swallowed hard. It was ridiculous how safe he felt, ridiculous, and dangerously sweet. They moved through the corridor. Arion swift and silent, Lyris held carefully in his arms. It was surreal. The world was on fire. Panic, soldiers, falling debris, but the king's grip never wavered. Lyris's fingers curled around Arion's shoulder, almost without thinking. Arion, he whispered, you shouldn't be risking yourself for me. The king's jaw tightened. I told you, he growled softly. You are mine to protect. Lyris's breath hitched. Why did those words feel like a touch on his skin? Arion slowed as they approached an intact wing of the palace, a quiet guarded passage leading to the royal chambers. Finally, he set Lyris down on a long cushioned bench, but he didn't step away. His hands remained on Lyris's waist a moment longer than necessary, warm, steady, grounding. Lyris's heart tugged painfully. You care too easily, Lyris whispered. Arion's brow furrowed. No, he said quietly. I care quickly. There's a difference. Lyris lowered his gaze. He could feel the past rising like a phantom, cold fingers brushing his spine. I should tell you something, he whispered, before you get closer. Arion's expression softened instantly. I'm listening. Lyris hesitated. The words felt heavy, trapped behind too many years of silence. I wasn't always hidden, he said quietly. I grew up in the open. Everyone knew my face. They said I was blessed. Arion kneeled in front of him, bringing them eye level. Blessed, he murmured. Lyris nodded slowly, and cursed. The king's eyes darkened. What did they do to you? Lyris's hands trembled in his lap. When my power manifested the first time, he whispered, people thought I was dangerous. They wanted to control me, use me. Some wanted me dead. Arion's fists clenched. Who? He demanded, voice low with fury. Who hunted you? Lyris shook his head. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. Lyris's breath caught at the intensity in the king's voice. Arion. The name came out softer than he intended, and that softness made the king still completely, as if Lyris had touched him. Arion reached up slowly. His fingers brushed the edge of the veil, not lifting it, not pulling, just resting there, gentle and warm. Lyris, he whispered. I want to see you. I want to know you, not because you're my spouse, but because you're you. Lyris's breath stuttered. You say that now, he murmured, but once the veil comes off. Arion leaned forward, stopping only when the veil grazed his lips. A breath shiver kiss, not to his skin, but to the silk covering it. Still, Lyris felt it like lightning. The gentlest touch, but it stole his breath. Arion. His voice trembled. The king didn't move away. His forehead drifted forward until it rested against Lyris's. Silk between them. Heat binding them. I don't need to see your face, Arion whispered. To want you. Lyris's heart skipped so violently he almost leaned into him. Almost. But fear flickered in his chest. You shouldn't, he whispered. I might hurt you. My power. Arion gently took both of Lyris's hands in his own, lifting them to his lips. He kissed the back of one hand through the glove, tender, devoted. Then hurt me, Arion murmured against his skin. If that's what fate demands. Lyris's breath caught. No, he whispered, voice cracking. I don't want to. Arion's grip tightened fractionally, indescribably gentle. Then trust me, he said softly, even if it's only for tonight. Lyris swallowed hard and nodded. A small nod, barely a tremble, but it broke something open inside Arion. Then, the king said, voice lower than before, May I give you one more kiss? Lyris's lips parted in surprise. With the veil, he whispered. For now, Arion murmured. Yes. Lyris nodded once more. A shaky, wordless yes. Arion leaned in, slowly, carefully, as though approaching something precious. Their lips met through the veil, soft and warm and impossibly intimate. A first kiss made of silken breath, longer, deeper, sweeter than it had any right to be. Lyris shivered. Arion's hands rose to cradle his face, and for a moment, the world outside the chamber ceased to exist. The room was quiet now. Guards had sealed the hall. The palace tremors had stopped. Only the soft crackle of a single lantern remained. Arion and Lyris sat close, too close, on the cushioned bench. The air between them pulsed like a living thing. Lyriss's gloved hands rested in Arion's palms, delicate and trembling. Their foreheads still leaned together, the veil brushing both their skin. "Arion," Lyris whispered. His voice was thready, uncertain, but wanting. "Why does being near you feel so right?" Arion finished softly. Lyris sucked in a breath. He hadn't expected the king to say the word he'd been afraid to think. Arion's fingertips slid up Lyriss's arms, slow, reverent, asking without words. Lyris shivered. No one had ever touched him like this. No one had ever wanted to. "Arion." Lyriss's voice trembled. "Why are you looking at me that way?" "Because I want you," the king whispered. "With your power, with your fear, with your secrets, with everything you think makes you unlovable." Lyriss's breath stuttered. No one had ever said something that dangerous, that soft, that devastating. "May I?" Arion asked, his fingers hovering near the edge of the veil. Lyris hesitated, then nodded, just once. The king didn't tear it away, he didn't even lift it fully. He only drew the fabric aside from one cheek, just enough to reveal a sliver of skin pale as moonlight. Lyris froze, breath held, pulse racing like a trapped bird. Arion exhaled, a soft reverent sound, and leaned in. His lips brushed that exposed cheek. A kiss, bare, skin on skin. Lyris shuddered so hard his knees weakened. "Arion," a gasp, half a plea. The king kissed the same spot again, slower. "Do you want me to stop?" Arion murmured against his skin. Lyris shook his head violently. "No. I want—" His voice broke. "I want more." Those words undid the king. His hand slid behind Lyriss's back, pulling him against his chest, their bodies pressed together, heat to heat. The veil was between them, but it no longer mattered. Lyris lifted his arms and wrapped them around Arion's shoulders, clinging. The movement brought their faces closer, until the veil brushed both their lips. Arion's voice was a low growl. "Lyris, take what you want from me." Lyris trembled. Then, with shaking hands, he lifted the veil only as high as his mouth, a soft reveal, barely anything, but everything. Arion inhaled sharply, almost a gasp. "You're beautiful." Lyriss's face flooded with heat. "I thought you said you didn't need to see my face." "I don't," Arion whispered. "But I want to—" Lyriss's lips parted. Arion leaned in. Their mouths met. Bare, warm, hungry, giving. The kiss deepened fast, too fast, like something long denied. Lyris clutched the king's coat, breath shaking, heart pounding against Arion's chest. The world spun away. The veil slipped further. Arion's hands moved, slow but certain, cradling Lyriss's hips, drawing him onto his lap. Lyris gasped softly as he straddled the king's thighs. Arion, tell me to stop," the king whispered raggedly. Lyris swallowed. "I can't." Arion's forehead dropped to Lyriss's shoulder in surrender. "Then stay with me," he said, "for tonight. Let me love you." Lyriss's eyes stung. No one had ever offered love, only use or fear. He cupped Arion's face with both hands, bare now, the gloves forgotten, and kissed the king again, tender and trembling. "Arion," he breathed, "I want you to. Please." That was the moment the king broke. He swept Lyris into his arms again, this time not out of protection, but out of need, and carried him toward the bedchamber. Lyris felt every heartbeat, every breath, every promise. He buried his face in Arion's neck, whispering, "Don't let me go." "Never," the king murmured. The door closed behind them. Lantern light flickered. The veil fell to the floor. And the rest of the night unfolded in soft touches, whispered names, and a joining of souls the world would never understand, until the lantern's flame burned low. And the scene faded gently into darkness. Lyris woke slowly. Warmth surrounded him. The warmth of a body, of a chest rising and falling beneath his cheek, of a heavy arm draped protectively around his waist. For a moment, he did not move. He simply breathed. It was the safest he'd felt in years. The faint dawn light crept through the curtains, tinting the royal chamber with a soft gold. The bed linens were tangled around their legs, their bodies pressed together beneath a single blanket. Arion's scent curled around him, rich, grounding, undeniably alpha. It soaked into Lyriss's skin, into his lungs, into the very center of him. He felt marked even without a mark. A flush rose to Lyriss's cheeks. He had removed more than his veil last night. He had let Arion see pieces of him no one else had ever touched. Not with hands, not with eyes, not with heart, and Arion had held him as though he were something precious. Lyris closed his eyes again. What have I done? His hand drifted across his own stomach, unconsciously soft, protective. The slightest ache lingered there. Not pain but a strange warmth, a pull deep in his core, an Omega's body reacting to an Alpha's claim. He froze. No. Already. It was too soon. It had only been one night, but Omegaverse bonds did not always obey reason, especially not when deep instincts, rare powers, and destiny tangled together. Behind him, Arion stirred. Lyris tensed. Instinct, fear, uncertainty. But the king simply tightened his arm around him, pulling him closer into his chest. A sleepy voice rumbled against Lyris's neck. Don't run away. Lyris went still. I wasn't. You were thinking about fleeing, Arion murmured, not opening his eyes. I can hear it in your heartbeat. Lyris swallowed. How do you always know? Finally, Arion opened his eyes. They were warm, softer than Lyris had ever seen. No fear, no doubt, just devotion. Because, Arion said quietly, brushing hair from Lyris's face, I spent all night learning you. Lyris's breath faltered. Arion? The king sat up slightly, supporting himself on one elbow, while his other hand drew gentle circles along Lyris's hip under the blankets. Nothing bold, nothing improper, just tender warmth. You're worrying, Arion said. Tell me why. Lyris hesitated. Then, softly, what if something changes now? Inside me? Arion's hand stilled, his expression changed. Not fear, not surprise, but understanding. You mean, he said quietly, what if last night has consequences? Lyris nodded, eyes fixed on the blankets. And what if they're consequences you don't want? Arion stared at him for a long moment. Then he shifted closer, wrapping both arms around Lyris and pulling him onto his lap. Lyris gasped softly, hands bracing against Arion's chest, cheeks burning. Arion. The king held him firmly, protectively. Look at me, he murmured. Lyris did. Arion's eyes softened with something that made Lyris's chest ache. If you are carrying my child, he said, voice deep and steady, then that is something I will guard with my life. Lyris's breath trembled. You wouldn't reject. Arion silenced him by touching their foreheads together. I would treasure, he whispered. You. And anything born from you. Lyris's heart nearly broke. He dropped his forehead to Arion's shoulder, gripping him tightly, fighting the tears that threatened. Arion, I don't deserve that. The king cupped the back of his head gently. You deserve everything, he murmured. Lyris's fingers curled into Arion's chest. He leaned in, letting himself sink into the warmth, the comfort, the quiet promise in the Alpha's embrace. But then something strange pulsed inside him, a spark, a flicker of power. Arion felt it too, his body stiffened for a moment. Lyris? Lyris pulled back slightly. I don't know, he whispered. It feels like something is waking. Arion's hand moved to Lyris's lower abdomen, gentle, reverent. A thin glow shimmered beneath Lyris's skin for a heartbeat. Silver, soft, fragile. Lyris gasped. Arion stared. That's... His voice dropped to a whisper. Omega magic. Ancient, rare, and tied to life. Lyris's throat tightened. He whispered, voice barely audible. Arion. Something is happening to me. The king pulled him close again, voice fierce in his ear. Then I'll face it with you. Lyris trembled in his arms, because for the first time in his life, he believed someone meant it. The palace stirred long before dawn. Servants hurried through halls. Ministers whispered. Guards stood a little stiffer, as though alert for danger they couldn't name. Something had changed in the night, and though none knew what it was, every instinct in the palace reacted to it, because the Alpha King's scent washed through the corridors, claimed, satisfied, protective, and beneath it, a new, faint Omega aura had awakened, unstable, untamed, ancient. Lyris clutched Arion's robe around himself, embarrassed to be wearing the king's clothes, but his own garments from the night before were ruined. Arion walked just behind him as they made their way toward the morning council meeting. Too close. warm breath brushing Lyris's nape. Every few steps, Arian's hand brushed the small of his back, guiding, steadying, a subtle but unmistakable alpha possessiveness. It made Lyris's heart pound uncontrollably. Stop reacting, he will notice. He didn't realize Arian was already smirking slightly. The massive council chamber doors swung open. Dozens of eyes turned instantly to them. Some widened in shock, some narrowed. Some lingered too long on Lyris's neck, as though searching for a mating mark. Arian growled under his breath. Quietly enough only Lyris could hear. Lyris felt a shiver down his spine. Then, the first figure stepped forward. 1. Lord Valen of the East, the jealous alpha noble, tall, golden hair pulled into a warrior's knot, an alpha with a reputation for violence and ambition, and years ago, rumored to have been promised the position of consort before the king rejected him. Valen bowed stiffly. Your Majesty, he said, and your Omega consort. His tone dripped with disdain. Lyris tried to hide behind Arian's arm. Valen's eyes sharpened. So this is the veiled prince. A beat. How disappointing. Arian was in front of him before Lyris even flinched. One hand slammed onto Valen's chest, shoving him backward. You will speak of him with respect, Arian growled, low and dangerous. Some ministers gasped. Valen laughed softly. But there was no humor in it. Ah, he murmured. So the rumors are true. The Alpha King has fallen hard. Arian bared his teeth. Lyris tugged his sleeve gently. Arian, please. The king froze immediately, just from Lyris's touch. Everyone in the hall saw it, and they understood. The Omega held power over the king. Whispers erupted. 2. High Priestess Seraphine, keeper of Omega lore. The doors opened again, and silence rippled outward. A woman swathed in white robes entered, silver hair braided with runes, pale eyes glowing faintly. The High Priestess of the Temple of Life. She bowed deeply. Your Majesties, she said. Lyris blinked. No, I'm not. You carry an ancient aura, Seraphine said, studying him. One I have not felt in centuries. Lyris stiffened. Arian stepped slightly in front of him. Explain. Seraphine approached Lyris with slow, reverent steps. Then she reached out, hovering her hand an inch above Lyris's abdomen. Lyris's breath hitched, a pulse, warm, silver. Seraphine gasped sharply, then knelt fully, bowing her head until it touched the floor. Your Majesty, she whispered to Lyris. Life stirs within you. Silence. Lyris's world stopped. Arian inhaled sharply, eyes going wide, then dark with something primal. The council suddenly erupted into chaos. Heirs already. It's impossible that fast. The Omega has magic. This threatens the balance. Arian's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Enough. Silence fell instantly. He crossed the space to Lyris, cupping his face gently but firmly. Lyris, he murmured. Are you frightened? Lyris couldn't speak. His throat tightened, his vision blurred. Arian, I don't know what's happening to me. Arian pulled him close, in front of the entire council, his forehead pressed to Lyris's. You're not alone, he whispered fiercely. I swear I will protect you, and whatever grows inside you. Lyris trembled, because he wanted to believe him. He wanted it so badly it hurt. Just then, a window shattered. An arrow flew straight toward Lyris. Arian yanked him close. But a barrier of silver light erupted from Lyris's body, glowing like a shield. The arrow vaporized. Gasps exploded through the room. Arian stared. Lyris stared. The High Priestess fell to her knees again. Omega magic awakening. The prophecy, she whispered. He is the one foretold. Arian wrapped his arms around Lyris, lifting him partially off the ground, holding him tight. Lyris, he breathed, voice trembling between relief and fury. Someone just tried to kill you. Lyris clung to him, shaking. Arian turned to his guards, voice like thunder. Find who dared target my consort. Then softer, only for Lyris. I'm not letting you out of my sight. He pressed his lips to Lyris's temple. Possessive, tender, unmistakably devoted. Lyris's cheeks flushed scarlet, and despite the fear, despite the chaos, a small, fragile warmth bloomed in his chest. He really does want me. The council chamber remained in stunned silence. Broken glass glittered across the floor like ice. Guards rushed to seal the windows, ministers whispered frantically, and the high priestess kept her forehead to the ground, trembling from what she had sensed. But Lyris heard none of it. Arion held him with both arms wrapped tightly around his waist, his face buried in Lyris's shoulder, as though he had nearly lost the most precious thing in his life. "Lyris, I could have lost you," he murmured, breath unsteady. Lyris swallowed, his hands gripping Arion's robe. "I'm okay. You protected me." "No," Arion growled softly. "You protected yourself. With magic so ancient I barely recognized it." His hands slid up Lyris's back, gentle but ferociously protective. "I'm taking you from here, but—" Lyris protested weakly. Arion didn't let him finish. He simply swept Lyris into his arms in one fluid motion. Gasps rippled through the room. The king was carrying his consort. In front of everyone. Lord Valen's jaw clenched, jealousy flashing like lightning in his eyes. High Priestess Seraphine whispered reverently, "Silver womb. The chosen Omega. The prophecy awakens." Arion ignored them all. He carried Lyris from the chamber, not sparing a single glance back. In the king's quarters. Once the heavy doors shut behind them, Arion set Lyris down only after being sure the room was secure. Then he gripped Lyris's shoulders tightly, his forehead pressing to Lyris, breaths uneven. "You must tell me if you feel strange again. Any dizziness, any heat, anything at all." Lyris blinked. "Arion, are you shaking?" The mighty Alpha King froze, then cursed under his breath. "I thought I was calm," he muttered, "but the moment that arrow flew, I saw red." Lyris's chest tightened painfully. He lifted a hand and touched Arion's cheek gently. "I'm okay," he whispered. Arion closed his eyes. When he opened them, the intensity nearly knocked Lyris back. "I'm never letting anyone close enough to hurt you again." Lyris felt warmth creep up his neck, but also something deeper, something pulling him toward Arion with a tenderness that frightened him. "Arion," he whispered, "I don't want you to worry too much." Arion's hands slid around Lyris's waist, pulling him in, their bodies flush. "I worry because I care," he murmured against Lyris's ear. Lyris's breath hitched, and then the door burst open. Enter Captain Kalen, the king's best friend, and another Alpha rival. A tall, silver-haired Alpha stormed inside, sword drawn. "Your Majesty, are you safe?" "I heard—" He froze when he saw Arion holding Lyris intimately. Arion growled. "Kalen, get out!" Kalen raised a brow. "Is this the Omega who unleashed that blast of ancient magic?" The whole castle felt it. Lyris quickly stepped back, flushing red. Kalen sheathed his sword and bowed politely. "Prince Consort Lyris, I am Captain Kalen Verez, commander of the Royal Guard." His gaze lingered a bit too long on Lyris. Arion stepped between them immediately. "Eyes forward, Kalen." Kalen smirked. "You never reacted like this with your past lovers. Aren't you supposed to be investigating the assassin?" Arion snapped. Kalen chuckled and got to business. "We found the arrow. It has the crest of the Crimson Fang, a rogue Alpha organization from the northern borders." Arion's jaw tightened. "They wouldn't dare enter my capital." "They would," Kalen said grimly, "for an Omega who threatens their prophecy." Lyris's stomach twisted. "Me? Again?" Kalen nodded solemnly. "The Crimson Fang believes an Omega with ancient blood will bring the fall of all Alpha-led kingdoms." Arion's grip on Lyris tightened protectively. "Then they've declared themselves my enemies." Lyris suddenly gasped, clutching his abdomen. Arion and Kalen both snapped toward him. "Lyris?" The pain wasn't sharp, but deep, like a warm pull of energy tightening inside him. A faint glow rippled beneath Lyris's skin again. Kalen's eyes widened, astonishing. "It's like the womb is awakening." Arion growled sharply. "Kalen." "Out." Kalen raised his hands innocently. "Very well. But you'll want my help soon." He left, the door slamming behind him. Arion guided Lyris gently to the bed, sitting beside him, cupping his cheek and brushing stray hair from his face. "What did you feel?" he asked softly. Lyris shivered. Warm, pulling, almost like someone inside me moved. Arion inhaled sharply. Lyris flushed scarlet. I don't know if it means I'm pregnant, or if it's just magic." Arian leaned in, lips brushing Lyris's forehead. Whatever it is, we will face it together. Lyris's throat tightened. Arian, why are you so kind to me? The king hesitated. Then he whispered, because I think I fell for you before I ever saw your face. Lyris's breath froze. His heart fluttered violently. Arian. The alpha brushed his thumb along Lyris's lower lip. I almost lost you today. Lyris felt heat pool low in his stomach. This time, Arian murmured, eyes darkening with emotion. I need you close to me. Tonight. And not because of instinct, because I want you. Lyris's breath trembled. I want that too. The alpha exhaled a shaky breath of relief, and he pulled Lyris gently into his arms, holding him tight against his chest as though he would never let go. Not tonight. Not ever. Arian didn't return Lyris to the main chambers. Instead, he carried him down a hidden staircase behind a carved tapestry, a passage only the royal bloodline knew existed. Lyris clung to him, still trembling from the pain and magic earlier. Arian, where are you taking me? To the one place no assassin can reach you, he said firmly, and the one place only I can open. Lyris blinked. That sounds lonely. Arian gave him a small, soft smile. Not if you're there. Lyris looked away quickly, heart pounding. They reached a door of black stone engraved with glowing runes. Arian placed his hand against it. The door shimmered open. Inside was a magnificent room lit with warm lanterns, filled with velvet cushions, carved wooden screens, soft furs, and a grand circular bed layered with blankets. It looked less like a bedchamber, and more like a sanctuary for someone the king adored. Arian, Lyris whispered. This room, it feels like... No one has ever entered this room, Arian said. Until now. Lyris's breath caught. You're the first person I've brought here, Arian continued, brushing a thumb over Lyris's cheek. The first person I've trusted with this place. With me. Lyris's heart twisted painfully. Arian, why me? You still don't see it, the king murmured. You don't know how I feel for you. He guided Lyris into the sanctuary, shutting the heavy door behind them. But before Arian could speak more, the door slammed open. Lord Valen stormed in, ignoring the guards shouting behind him. Arian, he roared, you cannot hide your consort away like a treasure. Arian snarled. What gives you the right to barge here? Valen's gaze snapped to Lyris, and froze. You brought him into this room? Arian stepped protectively in front of Lyris. Leave. Valen laughed bitterly. So it's true, you've fallen prey to your Omega instincts. Over him? His glare sharpened. A prince raised among witches? With power older than the throne. Arian, he's dangerous. Lyris trembled slightly. Arian noticed instantly and growled. Say another word about him, the king warned, and I will throw you down these stairs. Valen lifted his chin. Do you even know what you've taken to your bed? The magic around him is unstable. He could harm you. Lyris flinched. Arian seized Valen's collar, slamming him against the wall. Lyris would never harm me. Valen locked eyes with him, not willingly. But power like that, it doesn't obey its host. Arian froze. Lyris felt his heart drop. Is he right? Valen continued, voice low. A king must think with his mind, not his rut. Arian's fist clenched, then a hand, gentle trembling, touched his back. Lyris. That's enough, Lyris whispered. Both alphas turned to him. I don't want you to fight because of me. Arian looked devastated that Lyris might think this his fault. Valen stared, breath caught. For the first time, he saw Lyris's eyes not as weak or fragile, but luminous with something ancient and heartbreakingly soft. Valen's anger dimmed. You're not what I expected, he admitted quietly. Lyris didn't know if that was a compliment or a warning. Valen stepped back. This isn't over, Arian, he said. Your Omega may be more important and more dangerous than you realize. He left, the heavy door shut behind him. Arian didn't move. His fists trembled. Lyris, he whispered. I won't let him or anyone else take you from me. Lyris's chest tightened. I don't want to be taken from you. Arian whipped around to him, eyes widening. You don't? Lyris swallowed. I feel safe with you. Wanted, Even when I'm scared, I want to stay. Arion's expression softened into something warm and unbearably tender. He stepped closer, placing one hand on Lyris's cheek, the other around his waist. Then stay, he murmured. Stay with me tonight. Stay where I can hold you. Lyris blushed deeply. Arion. What if someone hears? They'll hear nothing, the king whispered, brushing a strand of hair behind Lyris's ear. This room is sealed. Sound cannot escape. Lyris's heart raced. Arion cupped his face. You don't have to do anything, he murmured. Just let me hold you. Let me comfort you. Lyris's eyes softened. Okay. Arion exhaled shakily, relief flooding his face. He guided Lyris to the massive bed and sat beside him, drawing him into his arms and holding him close, not lustfully, not possessively, just tenderly. With one arm around his waist and the other stroking his hair, Arion kissed the top of Lyris's head. Tonight, you sleep in my arms, he whispered, so no fear can touch you. Lyris curled against him, feeling the king's heartbeat under his ear, warm, steady, safe, and for the first time since arriving in this palace. Lyris fell asleep without nightmares. Lyris slept, but his sleep was not peaceful. Arion felt it first. A faint tremble in Lyris's body as he rested in the king's arms, his cheek against Arion's chest. Then the air changed. Warmth pulsed from Lyris's abdomen, gentle at first, then stronger. Silver threads of light drifted up from his skin, dancing through the room like floating fireflies. Arion's breath caught. Lyris. He brushed Lyris's cheek softly, but Lyris did not wake. Instead, he glowed, the silvery light wrapped around his waist, his chest, his wrists, like someone unseen was holding him. And he began to whisper, not in words Arion knew, in a soft, ancient language. Inside the dream, Lyris stood in a field of moonlit lilies. Fog swirled, stars glowed like lanterns overhead. And then he saw it. A small figure standing among the flowers, a child, silver-haired, barefoot. Eyes the same shade as Lyris's magic, glowing like young moons. Who are you? Lyris whispered. The child smiled softly. Mother, they said. Lyris froze. Blood roared in his ears. The child stepped closer, lifting a tiny hand to touch Lyris's cheek. You're scared, the child said gently, but don't be, I'm here. Lyris swallowed hard. Am I really going to have you? The child nodded. But not everyone wants me to be born. The lilies around them wilted suddenly. A shadow rippled across the field. The child grabbed Lyris's hand. Hurry, they whispered. They're coming. Who? But the dream shattered. Lyris jolted awake, gasping. Arion instantly wrapped both arms around him, pulling him in, grounding him against his chest. Easy, he whispered. I'm here. You're safe. Lyris shuddered, gripping Arion's shirt with trembling fingers. I saw a child, he whispered. They called me Mother. Arion stiffened slightly, shock, awe, something primal, but his voice stayed gentle. Tell me. Lyris recounted the dream in a trembling voice. The silver-eyed child, their warning, the shadows creeping in. Arion stroked his hair, jaw tight. Your magic is awakening faster than we expected. Perhaps the bond is already forming. Lyris looked up sharply. Do you think the dream was real? Arion pressed his forehead to Lyris's. In magic this old? Yes, Lyris swallowed. Am I actually carrying a life? Arion cupped his cheek. If you are, then I will protect both of you with everything I am. Lyris felt something loosen inside his chest, something frightened yet hopeful. He leaned into Arion's touch. Thank you for staying while I slept. Arion whispered. I will always stay. While Lyris slept safely in Arion's arms, Lord Valen knelt in a dark chamber, lit only by candles shaped like wolf fangs. The high priestess Seraphine stood before him, her white robes glowing faintly. She will not approve of your meddling, Seraphine warned. Valen clenched his fists. You felt the energy in that council room. That Omega is dangerous. Seraphine's expression was unreadable. He is blessed. He is unstable, Valen snapped. And if he truly carries the king's heir... Seraphine's eyes narrowed. Are you jealous or frightened? Valen's jaw tightened. Loyal to the kingdom, not to my pride. Seraphine stepped closer. There is a prophecy, she whispered, of a silver womb Omega who will birth a child with power enough to rewrite the Alpha world. Valen's blood ran cold. Rewrite? Into what? Seraphine's eyes glowed faintly. A world where Alphas no longer rule. Valen froze. Lyris's child? Possibly. Valen's heart pounded. This could destroy the kingdom. Seraphine turned away. Or save it. Valen's voice dropped to a whisper. You know Arion will choose Lyris over the kingdom. Seraphine's lips curved faintly. Yes, she said softly, and that is what terrifies our enemies. Valen's expression hardened. I must prepare, before the worst comes. Meanwhile, in the lower chambers, Captain Kalen dragged a cloaked figure from a hidden crevice behind the kitchens. The spy spat blood, glaring defiantly. You're too late, Alpha Dog, they hissed. The Crimson Fang already watches the Omega. Kalen's grip tightened. Speak, you think only the king has secrets? The spy laughed. Your precious consort will be dead before the full moon rises. Kalen's eyes narrowed darkly. Not if I get to your leader first. When morning sunlight finally warmed the sanctuary, Lyris woke to find Arion still holding him, head resting against Lyris's hair, breath warm on his forehead. He'd stayed awake most of the night, keeping watch. Lyris touched his cheek gently. You didn't sleep. Arion opened his eyes slowly. I didn't want anything to happen to you while you dreamed. Lyris's heart throbbed painfully. You really care that much? Arion brushed a thumb along Lyris's lower lip. I care more than you know. Lyris's breath caught. Arion. The king leaned in, forehead resting against Lyris's again, their breaths mingling warmly. Stay with me today, Arion whispered. Don't leave my side. Lyris nodded softly. I don't want to. Arion's expression shone, deep, relieved, something like joy. He held Lyris close again, wrapping him safely in his arms, but neither of them saw. Outside the sanctuary door, a pair of glowing red eyes watched through the shadows. The Crimson Fang had entered the palace, and their target was the silver womb Omega. The morning sun filtered gently across the sanctuary floor, painting soft gold over the blankets where Lyris and Arion sat. Lyris was still curled comfortably against the king's chest, trying to steady his breathing after the dream from the night before. Arion stroked Lyris's hair slowly, soothing without words, but the peace did not last, not even a minute. A subtle shift in the air. So faint, Lyris might have missed it completely if Arion hadn't gone absolutely still behind him. Arion? Lyris whispered. The king's arms tightened around him. Don't move. Lyris froze. Arion's posture had changed, shoulders tense, breath sharpened, alpha instincts rising to full alert. A faint sound echoed from the far corner of the sanctuary. Soft, too soft, like someone exhaling. In a blink, Arion was on his feet, pulling Lyris behind him, shielding him with his body. Show yourself, he growled. Silence, for 3 long, suffocating seconds, until a figure dropped from the ceiling rafters like a shadow made flesh. 1. The Crimson Fang assassin appears, dressed in dark crimson cloth, a mask covering their face. The assassin landed soundlessly on the sanctuary floor. Twin daggers gleamed, coated in something black and oily, venom. Lyris's blood ran cold. But Arion snarled, stepping forward protectively. You dare enter my private sanctuary? The assassin tilted their head. A king who guards an Omega so fiercely must have a reason. Their voice was light, almost laughing. The silver womb awakened sooner than expected. Lyris flinched. Arion's growl deepened. You will not touch him. The assassin rushed forward, impossibly fast, but Arion moved faster. Steel clashed as Arion seized the assassin's wrist mid-strike, twisting hard. The dagger fell, clattering across the floor. But the assassin did not panic. Instead, they slipped their other hand free. A dagger aimed straight at Lyris. No! Arion roared. He leaped between them. But magic burst from Lyris like a shockwave. Silver light exploded outward from Lyris's body, knocking the assassin back violently, sending them crashing into the far wall. Arion turned toward Lyris, shocked. Lyris? But Lyris was trembling violently, clutching his abdomen. Something's happening. Arion caught him in his arms just before he collapsed. The assassins staggered to their feet, mask cracked. aura trembling from the blast. They stared at Lyris with awe and terror. "So the prophecy is true," the assassin whispered. "The child is already quickening." Arion bared his teeth. "I'll kill you where you stand." But the assassin only laughed softly. "You can kill me, but others will come. Hundreds will come." They threw a small explosive bead at the floor, a burst of smoke. When it cleared, the assassin was gone. Arion immediately knelt, pulling Lyris into his lap. "Lyris, look at me," he pleaded. Lyris's breath came in short, panicked gasps. He clutched at Arion's shirt desperately. "Arion, it's burning inside." Arion gently cupped Lyris's face, forcing their gazes to meet. "Breathe with me," he murmured. "In, slow, out, slow." Lyris tried. His magic flickered violently under his skin, silver crackling like lightning. His entire body shook. "It hurts, something inside me, moving." Arion's eyes darkened. "The child?" Lyris squeezed his eyes shut. "I don't know, it feels like something is waking." The king gathered Lyris tightly against his chest, one hand on the back of Lyris's head, the other pressing over his abdomen, grounding him. "Shh, you're safe," he whispered fiercely. "Focus on my voice." "I've got you, I'm here." Lyris buried his face in Arion's neck, breathing in his scent, clinging to him like lifeline. Little by little, the magic receded. Lyris sagged weakly against Arion. "Arion, I was so scared." The king kissed his hair, holding him like he was the most fragile treasure in the world. "I know," he whispered, "and you were brave." Lyris's eyes fluttered. He whispered, voice trembling, "What if something is alive inside me?" Arion gently brushed Lyris's cheek with his thumb. "Then we protect it." Lyris blinked up at him. "We?" Arion kissed his forehead softly. "We," he said. "This life is ours. Whatever is happening to you, we face it together." Lyris swallowed. "Thank you for not letting me be afraid alone." Arion's arms wrapped around him tighter. "You'll never be alone again." Lyris's chest warmed painfully with emotion. He rested his head on Arion's chest, listening to the king's heartbeat. Steady, strong, safe. But outside the sanctuary, footsteps approached, not enemy ones. These carried purpose. Kaelin burst in, sword drawn. "Your Majesty, I heard the—" He froze. Arion was holding Lyris in his lap. Lyris clinging to him, face buried in Arion's chest. Kaelin's jaw tensed. "Is he hurt?" Arion narrowed his eyes. "Why are you here?" Kaelin stepped forward. One of the palace guards was found dead. Crimson Fang signature. They infiltrated the lower halls. Arion stiffened. Lyris trembled. Kaelin's gaze softened when he looked at Lyris. "It's okay," Kaelin said gently. "You're safe now." Arion growled. "Do not speak to him like that." Kaelin raised a brow. "Why? Concern is not allowed?" Arion's voice dropped dangerously. "He is my consort." Lyris's heart skipped. Kaelin smirked faintly. "Oh? Then maybe you should protect him better." Arion lunged forward with a snarl. Lyris quickly grabbed his hand, shaking his head. "Arion, don't fight him." The king froze immediately at Lyris's voice. Kaelin's smirk vanished, because he saw it. Lyris could calm the king with a whisper. That was new. That was dangerous. And that meant Arion loved him. Kaelin sheathed his sword quietly. "I'll double the guard. No one enters this sanctuary again without permission." He shot one last glance at Lyris. "Be careful, both of you." Then he left. Arion exhaled harshly. "I should have killed him for looking at you like that." Lyris flushed. "Arion." The king cupped Lyris's cheek and kissed his forehead tenderly. "Rest now. I'll hold you until the shaking stops." Lyris nodded softly, leaning into him once more, but neither of them noticed. A dark, armored figure standing on a distant rooftop, watching the palace. The warlord of the Crimson Fang had arrived, and he whispered coldly, "The silver womb must die before the next moon." The sanctuary remained sealed and guarded for the rest of the day. No servants, no advisors, no interruptions, just Arion and Lyris. Arion carried Lyris to the soft divan by the window, settling him gently onto the cushions. His hand didn't leave Lyris's waist even once. "You should rest," the king murmured. Lyris shook his head, voice still small from earlier. "No, there's something I need to understand first." Arion sat beside him, brushing a loose strand of silver hair from Lyris's face. "What is it?" Lyris hesitated. My magic, it felt like it was protecting the baby, not me. Arion's hand tightened ever so slightly. So you believe the assassin was right? That you already... He couldn't finish the sentence. The fear was still too raw. Lyris placed a calming hand over Arion's. I don't know. I only know what I felt. Before Arion could respond, the doors burst open. This time, Arion's hand flew to his sword, but Lyris quickly grabbed his arm. It's fine. Because standing there, breathing hard, was not an assassin, but an elderly woman wearing ceremonial white robes, the high priestess of Arianthea. Arion lowered his sword with visible reluctance. Priestess Seraphine, he growled. I gave strict orders. Your Majesty, she interrupted, voice sharp as crystal. Lyris unleashed a silver discharge that shook the holy wards of the palace. If the gods themselves are stirring, I will not wait for permission. Arion looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Seraphine swept forward, her eyes falling on Lyris. But unlike others, she did not fear him. She bowed deeply. Blessed Omega. We finally meet properly. Lyris blinked. Why do you call me that? Seraphine's gaze softened. Because you bear the mark. She gently lifted Lyris's hand, revealing a faint glowing line that hadn't been there before, or had been too faint to see, a silver crescent. Lyris gasped softly. Arion stiffened. What does it mean? Seraphine stepped back, folding her hands. It means the prophecy is awakening. Lyris swallowed hard. What prophecy? Seraphine began to recite, voice echoing like ancient thunder. When the blood moon rises, an Omega of silver womb shall awaken. His child shall decide the fate of all kingdoms. If born under love, the world will flourish. If born under blood, the world shall burn. Silence filled the sanctuary. Lyris stared at his faint glowing mark in horror. Arion rose instantly. No, he snapped. He will not be a prophecy. He will be a person. Seraphine sighed. Your Majesty, this is bigger than a king's wish. The silver womb's child is a being the world has awaited for centuries. Arion cut her off, stepping in front of Lyris protectively. He is my consort, my husband, and anything concerning his body goes through me. Seraphine's expression tightened, but she nodded stiffly. Very well. Then you must know the danger. Every assassin guild and rival kingdom will come for him. Lyris trembled, barely perceptible, but Arion saw it immediately. He wrapped an arm firmly around Lyris's waist. They'll have to kill me first, he said coldly. Lyris whispered, barely audible, Arion. The king's grip tightened. No one will touch you, not while I breathe. Seraphine cleared her throat. There is more. The prophecy speaks of 3 guardians who must awaken to protect the silver womb. Without them, the child cannot survive. Guardians? Arion frowned. Who? Only one has revealed himself so far. Seraphine turned toward the doorway. At first, nothing. Then, footsteps, quiet, measured. A man stepped through, tall and graceful, dressed in twilight blue robes. His eyes were an unnatural violet, glowing faintly. Lyris's breath caught. He felt something, like a cool breeze brushing his soul. Seraphine gestured. This is Arethos, the moon sentinel. The stranger bowed to Lyris with reverence. Your scent called to me, he said softly. Arion shot forward instantly. Step back from him. But Arethos remained calm. I am bound to protect him. Arion snarled. He needs no protector but me. Arethos's violet eyes slid to the king. Your devotion is admirable, but if you fail, even once, the world ends. Arion's sword was half drawn. Lyris quickly grabbed his arm again. Arion, please, slowly, reluctantly. Arion lowered the blade. Arethos stepped near Lyris, but not too close, and knelt. When he spoke, his voice was gentle, yet ancient. You carry a life inside you that glows like a star. I felt it from 100 leagues away. Lyris felt tears prick his eyes. Arion immediately turned him, cupping his face. Don't cry, he whispered. You're safe. I'm here. Lyris leaned into him, one hand gripping the king's sleeve. Arethos rose. I will take residence near the palace. Others will come. Prepare yourselves. and without waiting for permission, he turned and vanished out the door like a passing shadow. Arion exhaled slowly. Great. Another man who thinks he has a claim on you. Lyris laughed softly, leaning his forehead against Arion's shoulder. Arion, don't be jealous. The king wrapped his arms around him tightly. I am jealous, he admitted quietly. When it comes to you, I always will be. Lyris flushed warm. He rested his head against Arion's chest, breathing in his scent. But the peace didn't last long. A horn sounded in the distance. Dark, warning. Arion's eyes widened. That's the northern alarm, he muttered. Lyris stiffened. What does it mean? Arion pulled Lyris gently behind him, protective instinct rising fast. It means, Arion said darkly, that someone just breached the palace walls? The horn echoed again, low and mournful. Arion's entire body went rigid. Lyris felt fear coil in his stomach, but the king's arm around his waist steadied him. Arion, who breached the wall? The king's expression turned grim. There is only one threat bold enough to announce themselves. Before he could finish, a guard ran in, breathless. Your Majesty! The intruder, he walked through the defenses like mist. Nothing could stop him. Arion tensed. Speak plainly. The guard swallowed hard. It's the warlord of the Crimson Fang. Lyris felt his heart drop. Arion pulled Lyris behind him, protectiveness radiating off his body like heat. Seal every corridor. No one comes within 50 steps of my consort. Yes, Your Majesty? As the guard sprinted away, Arion turned to Lyris, gently cupping his cheeks. Lyris, listen to me. The urgency in his voice stole Lyris's breath. No matter what happens, stay at my side, Arion said quietly. I will keep you safe. Lyris nodded. But the door suddenly creaked open, not slammed, not broken, simply opened, as if the intruder belonged there. Footsteps echoed, slow, confident, powerful. A man walked in, tall, armor blackened by fire, crimson marks glowing faintly along his arms. His eyes were chilling gold, like a predator staring at prey. The warlord of the Crimson Fang. He examined the sanctuary with a faint, amused smile. So this is the treasure of the Silver Womb. Arion stepped forward with a low growl. Speak again, and I'll cut out your tongue. The warlord chuckled. You are as amusing as I heard, King Arion. His gaze shifted to Lyris. And you are more radiant than the rumors claimed. Arion's sword flashed from its sheath, but the warlord flicked a hand lazily, and Arion was thrown back by a gust of dark force, slamming into the wall. Arion! Lyris cried, rushing toward him. The warlord snapped his fingers. A barrier of red magic blocked Lyris's path. Arion struggled to his feet, fury blazing in his eyes. Don't touch him, he snarled. Oh, I won't, the warlord smirked. I don't need to. The child he carries is enough. Lyris froze. Arion moved like lightning, close enough to strike, but the warlord held up a hand, and everything stopped. Even the air. You cannot kill me, King, he said softly. Not yet. Arion's jaw clenched. What do you want? Nothing complicated, the warlord replied. I came to see the prophecy's vessel myself. His gaze sharpened, golden eyes glowing, and to deliver a message, he stepped closer, boots echoing ominously. A storm is coming. On the night of the blood moon, your child will decide the fate of nations. Arion stepped between them again, sword raised. Lyris and our child will not be used. The warlord smiled darkly. You assume you'll survive long enough to see that child born. He turned toward the exit, but paused. And one last thing, King Arion. Arion growled, tense as a drawn bowstring. The warlord looked over his shoulder. Love him fiercely, because love is the only thing that can save him. With that, he vanished into black smoke. Silence filled the room. Lyris trembled. Arion immediately pulled him in, crushing him against his chest. Are you hurt? Arion's voice cracked with fear he didn't bother to hide. Lyris shook his head. Arion, are you hurt? No, the king murmured, burying his face in Lyris's hair. No, I'm fine, I'm fine. His hands clutched Lyris desperately, almost shaking. Lyris wrapped his arms around Arion's neck, whispering, I was so scared for you. Arion exhaled shakily. I can't lose you, Lyris. I can't. He pulled back just enough to cradle Lyris's face. You and our child, You are everything." Lyris felt tears well up. He pressed his forehead to Arion's. "We'll get through this," Lyris whispered. "Together." Arion kissed him then, slow, deep, unshakably tender, not out of desire, out of relief, out of love and fear. Arion wasted no time. The palace transformed overnight. Guards tripled, barriers reinforced, the high priestess, mages, and sentinels all called to duty, but the most important preparation was emotional. Lyris sat in the private garden under the moonlight, watching silver petals fall from enchanted blossoms. Arion joined him quietly, sitting beside him. Lyris rested a hand on his abdomen. "Arion, do you ever wonder what our child will be like?" Arion's expression softened beautifully. "Every moment." Lyris leaned into him. "Do you think I'll be a good parent?" Arion wrapped an arm around him and kissed the top of his head. "You already are," he whispered. "You protect them with every breath." Lyris swallowed. "And you?" Arion chuckled softly. "I will love our child with everything I have, just as I love their mother." Lyris blushed. "Mother?" Arion brushed a thumb over Lyris's cheek. "You carry our child. You are the heart of this family. Mother is a title of honor." Lyris flushed and hid his face against Arion's chest. "Arion." The king chuckled again, holding him close. "You don't have to answer. Just know that I'm proud." Lyris melted into him, letting himself be held. For a moment, the world was gentle, peaceful, perfect. The palace was silent, too silent. Lyris couldn't sleep, not with the prophecy looming, the warlord's threat, the guardians gathering, the magic thrumming under his skin. He paced nervously in the sanctuary. "Arion, what if I can't control my power?" The king approached from behind, wrapping his arms around Lyris's waist and drawing him back against his chest. "Then I will hold you until you can—" Lyris bit his lip. "And what if the prophecy is right? What if our child—" Arion turned him around gently. "Our child will be born under love," he said firmly, "because my love for you is unshakable." Lyris felt tears brim. Arion leaned in, forehead touching Lyris's. "Tomorrow might be dangerous," he whispered. "But tonight, I want you to feel safe, cherished, wanted." Lyris's breath hitched. He nodded. Arion kissed him, softly, reverently, then lifted him into his arms and carried him to their bed, and the candles slowly went out, fade to black. The night arrived faster than anyone wanted. The palace bells tolled as the moon climbed the sky, not silver, not gold, but crimson, a blood moon. Lyris stood beside Arion on the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Guardians and soldiers gathered below. The high priestess prayed under her breath. Erithos, the moon sentinel, knelt solemnly at Lyris's side. Arion took Lyris's hand firmly. "Whatever happens," he murmured, "I stand with you." Lyris squeezed his hand back. "I'm not afraid," he whispered. "Not with you here." But he was, not for himself, for Arion, for their child. A crack of thunder shook the sky. Dark mist rolled over the palace walls like a living creature. The warlord had arrived. The courtyard went eerily still as the warlord of the Crimson Fang materialized from the mist, his crimson armor glowing under the blood moon. "Silver Womb," he called. "Tonight, destiny is written." Arion stepped forward, sword drawn. "Lyris is not a pawn in your prophecy," the warlord smirked. "And yet the gods disagree." He raised his hand. Dark magic surged outward, crashing toward them. Arion pushed Lyris behind him, but Lyris shouted, "No!" Silver light erupted from Lyris's palms, forming a barrier that shattered the warlord's attack. The entire courtyard fell silent. Even the warlord stepped back in surprise. "So the womb awakens." Lyris trembled, but his voice was steady. "I won't let you hurt my family." The warlord laughed softly. "You are powerful but untrained. You cannot hope to—" He lunged. Arion blocked the strike. Swords clashed, sparks flying. The battle exploded into motion. Erithos joined, weaving moonlit magic to counter dark flames. High Priestess Seraphine raised holy wards to protect the soldiers. But the warlord was strong, too strong. Arion and Erithos fought fiercely, side by side. Yet the warlord's blade struck Arion across the chest. "Arion!" Lyris screamed. The king fell to one knee, blood staining his armor. The warlord's cold voice boomed, "Without the king, the silver womb will crumble." "No," Lyris whispered, tears burning down his cheeks, his heart squeezed painfully. A heat spread from his core. Burning, blinding, unstoppable. The entire courtyard glowed silver. The warlord staggered. What is this power?" Lyris stepped forward, silver aura swirling around him like wings. "My child, my mate, my people." His voice layered with an ancient power. "I will protect them." The silver aura exploded outward, a brilliant tidal wave of light that tore through the warlord's magic like paper. The warlord screamed as the power engulfed him, and then, silence. He was gone. Only silver motes drifted in the air like snow. Lyris collapsed, the glow fading. "Arion. Arion." Lyris rushed to Arion's side, falling to his knees. "Arion, please, stay with me." The king's eyes fluttered open, weak, bleeding, but alive. "There you are," Arion whispered, trying to smile. "I told you, I'm hard to kill." Lyris sobbed, pressing his forehead to Arion's. "You scared me. Don't ever do that again." Arion cupped his cheek weakly. "You saved us all," he whispered. "I knew you would." Lyris shook his head fiercely. "No, we saved each other." The high priestess hurried forward, healing magic glowing at her palms. "A king protected by love is stubborn indeed," she muttered. Arion chuckled painfully. Lyris stayed at his side the entire time the wounds were sealed, refusing to move even when ordered to rest. Arion stroked his hand. "You can rest now," he murmured. Lyris pressed his cheek into Arion's palm. "I will. Just don't let go." Arion smiled softly. "Never." 3 months later, the kingdom was peaceful. The prophecy fulfilled, the crimson fangs scattered, and the palace blossomed with joy. In a sunlit room filled with soft silks and gentle music, Lyris rested in bed, cradling a tiny, quiet bundle in his arms, a baby with silver wisps of hair, and Arion's vibrant blue eyes. Arion sat beside the bed, unable to look away. "He's perfect," the king whispered. Lyris smiled tiredly. "He has your eyes." Arion gently traced the baby's cheek with a trembling finger. "And your light." Lyris leaned into Arion's shoulder. "We really made him." Arion wrapped an arm around Lyris, pulling him close. "We made a family." Lyris's eyes shimmered. "Are you happy?" Arion kissed his temple. "You and our son are the greatest joy of my life." The baby cooed softly. Lyris giggled. Arion's smile softened in that rare unguarded way reserved only for his Omega. "Let's name him," Lyris whispered. Arion nodded. "What do you think of Calum?" Lyris's breath caught. "The sky that holds us all." Arion nodded. "Just like you hold us." Lyris flushed, leaning into Arion's chest. "Calum," he whispered to the baby. "Welcome home." The years passed peacefully. The kingdom flourished under King Arion's rule, strengthened by the bond he shared with his consort. Lyris walked through the palace gardens one sunset, little Calum toddling beside him, giggling as the enchanted flowers reached toward him. Arion approached from behind, wrapping his arms around Lyris's waist. "Everything okay?" he murmured into Lyris's ear. Lyris leaned back against him. "Perfect." Arion kissed Lyris's neck softly. "Our story began with a veil," he whispered, "and became the greatest miracle of my life." Lyris turned to look at him, smiling warmly. "And it will continue, every day." Arion kissed him gently. A kiss full of love, promise, and peace, and under the silver twilight, sky. Their family's story went on. The end. Epilogue. 3 years had passed since the blood moon. Calum was a lively child, bright, curious, and overflowing with a gentle magic no one quite understood yet. He ran through the palace gardens barefoot, silver hair bouncing, laughing as the enchanted flowers swayed to greet him. "Papa, look!" Calum exclaimed, holding a glowing blue butterfly cupped in his small hands. "It followed me." Lyris knelt beside him, smiling with all the warmth in his heart. "That's because you shine so bright, sweetling." Calum's eyes sparkled. A vibrant mix of Arion's blue and Lyris's silver, like a sky full of stars. "Can I keep him?" Lyris chuckled softly and kissed Calum's forehead. "If you set him free, he'll come back to find you whenever he can." Calum thought very seriously about this, then lifted his hands. The butterfly fluttered up, circling the child once before flying away with a shimmer of magic. "See?" Lyris whispered. "Even the little spirits love you." Calum giggled and hugged Lyris tightly. Arion found them in the garden, watching butterflies. Calum! Arion called gently. The boy perked up instantly, running toward the king with little determined steps. Papa, Papa, look, I made the flowers dance. Arion lifted him high, kissing his cheek. You did? Show me. Calum nodded proudly, scrunching his tiny face in concentration, and sure enough, the flowers around them swayed in a perfect circle, spinning like a crown around Lyris and Arion. Arion laughed, full-bodied and warm. You are incredible, he said softly, just like your mother. Calum wrinkled his nose. Papa, Mama gets shy when you say that. Lyris flushed, swatting Arion's arm. I do not. Arion kissed Lyris anyway. Calum made a tiny gagging noise. Ew. Arion grinned. I suppose that means the display of affection is over. Lyris laughed, and for a while they watched their son chase butterflies and dancing flowers under the golden afternoon sky. A perfect moment, a perfect family. That night, long after Calum was asleep, Lyris was awakened by a soft glow. He blinked. Calum's crib was glowing. Silver light pulsed like a heartbeat around the child's tiny body. Arion, Lyris whispered urgently. The king jerked awake, sword half drawn. What's wrong? Lyris pointed. Calum slept peacefully, but hovering above his palms danced tiny galaxies, spirals of light, stars, nebulae. He's creating them, Lyris whispered in awe. It's not magic, it's something else. Arion's expression was unreadable. Prophecy child, he murmured. Lyris shook his head fiercely. No, he's our child. Arion wrapped an arm around him. I know. They watched the miniature constellations flicker gently, then fade away as Calum rolled over, sucking his thumb. Arion exhaled slowly. We should tell the high priestess tomorrow. Lyris hesitated. No. Let's let him be just a child for one more day. Arion nodded and kissed his forehead. Just one more day. The next morning dawned peacefully. Birds sang outside the windows. Sunlight warmed the nursery floor. Lyris walked toward the crib with a smile. Good morning, my sweet. He froze. Arion, entering behind him, immediately reached for his sword, because there, carved into the wooden side of Calum's cradle, was a symbol, a blood-red crescent, still glowing with dark magic. A voice whispered from nowhere. The prophecy is not finished. Lyris grabbed Calum and held him tight, trembling. Arion's jaw clenched as he lifted the crib with one hand and crushed it with terrifying strength. No one, he snarled, touches my son. But the air felt colder. The shadow of a threat they thought long gone had returned. And this time, it wanted Calum. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Kindly comment below if you loved it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.